Well, the wait is over. Part two with Jason Ryder is here. We got quite a lot of pressure from you guys to release this really quickly, so we've done our best for you. We've published it for you as soon as we can. We've had a lot of questions about the different things that we covered in part one. A lot of those questions are actually answered in this part two, so you're going to want to listen carefully. If there was anything that you kind of wanted us to go into deeper detail with from part one, you may well be pleasantly surprised. It will probably be covered in this second section. We jump in and out of bait. A lot of it is about flavours, but we talk about other compounds as well. Jason starts by telling us, what he believes to be the two most powerful attractors that we can use. And as well as that, Jason also goes into some of his experiences fishing abroad from France to America. So that's really interesting as well. Of course, this episode is brought to you by Carp Hunter Giveaways. If you don't know already, Carp Hunter Giveaways do fantastic prize draws to suit every budget, ranging from bobbins all the way up to bivvies and bite alarms. Go ahead, check them out on their social media, get involved with them. You can also visit their website on carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. They also give back to Phoenix Heroes, which is a charity which supports families and veterans suffering with PTSD. So it really is a great cause. Go ahead, check them out, and enjoy this episode of the Carp Angler Chronicles podcast.
I would say probably the two most attractive things that you can give a carp on the face of the planet are vitamin C, ascorbic acid, and citric acid.
Yeah.
And if you do the tank test, you'll see that for yourself. Like at times, the fish will go crazy. They're both very, very cheap things that you can use.
It's just going on sort of our previous conversations that we've had and we've had with other people. Do you see vitamin C, so like ascorbic acid in itself, as attractive to carp, or do you see it as a means to sort of aid with protein digestion?
No, 100% attractive in its own right, massively.
Okay.
The benefits are obviously there. So if you go back to Victorian times and we had dirty sewers and rats, and even before that, all bubonic plague and stuff. And like life expectancy was really low. So the two things in recent history that have increased the lifespan of human beings are, one is sanitation, and two, the use of vitamin C. No one has scurvy anymore today. And you'll be surprised how many different foodstuffs it gets put in, because it can make such a massive difference to you. And I think the fish can see that difference. I think it is naturally attractive to them.
Yeah, interesting, because like I say, we've had conversations with other people who sort of said there's no, I guess, scientific evidence to suggest that vitamin C is attractive to themselves. I can't say I've ever sort of tank tested. I don't know if you have on your fish, Sam, ascorbic acid.
Ascorbic acid. I've had it in baits, and God, back in the day when I was rolling loads of different baits, and me and you, Pete, we were rolling fucking loads a week. We would never dream of making a bait without Selenivite or Equivite, whichever we were using.
Right. Yeah.
But no, sorry, mate, to answer your question, I've never tested ascorbic acid on my fish. I can do so. I've got ascorbic acid here.
Years ago, I remember looking at Barocca because of its vitamin content, and it had like citric acid. And I always wanted to play around with it, never did, and it's just entered my head there that actually on paper, like Barocca should be quite attractive to a carp.
Yeah, so like if you look at your own diet, you'll eat what you eat, but sometimes you'll just really fancy something. Do you know what I mean? And it might just think like, fucking hell, I want a proper dinner. I just want to sit down and have like a load of vegetables and goodness or something. Get away from the pizza. And I think that was the whole point of the nutritional theory at the start, is that you would, inside a bait, you would cover all food groups, and it would be something that was sustainable for life. And I think, over the years, we've gone further and further away from it. And I do think it's to do with the end user. You can't see your bang for your buck, if you like.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And every lake's different. You know, some baits you fish on a certain lake and you'll do fantastic. Everything goes well, and then on other lakes you struggle for a bite and you mix it up. So, like you're saying, with the end user being the fish, it's all sort of relative, I guess.
Mate, it's yeah, and it really, you know, as we said before, it's as much to do with how you fish your bait as what the bait is. I mean, it's become really, really popular crumbing up now and smashing things up. Well, I think in my first book, there's a picture of me running on my driveway, running over bags of boilies with my car. You know what I mean? That was like 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Sodger crusher. There you go. There's 15
That's a
kilo.
good idea to be
5
fair.
seconds. Yeah, double bag them, drive over them a few times, bang, there you go. You know, I mean, I went out to Texas in March, and I was shown how to use the pack bait out there. Well, I sort of brought that recipe back and adapted it, and I've been fishing that a bit this year, you know, using the porridge just as the binder and stuff, but basically using boilie crumb and like a few sort of high strength additives in microdoses, and little bits of oil and stuff. And that's been really good for me as a different way of fishing, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm mostly single hook bait fishing as well with that one ball, you know.
It's it's a ground bait, isn't it? It's making a comeback almost. It's coming into vogue again.
Oh mate, I mean, if I was fishing in the winter, right, how I'd like to, I'd use a single hook bait, a wafter or something probably, but I would also put over the top of it 20 litres of slop, you know, ground up bait, boilie crumb, just as much attraction as possible. Like literally make like a huge cloud, but the only bit of digestible food is the one hook bait, but you know, an entire bucket of stuff in there. And it's working the swim. I mean, so was it 3 or 4 years back we had a little bit of a crayfish problem in the lake for 1 year, and people were moaning they were getting their hook baits chewed and stuff. Now I found it absolutely fantastic when I went over. It was such a massive edge because people were just baiting up twice a day, you know, and literally after 3 hours they had no bait in the swim. So on the work parties, every time I walk around the lake, I'd just catapult in 4 or 5 catapults full of bait, then do a bit of work, walk around 4 or 5, and I just had fish in the swim all the time, you know, because bait was going in regularly. So you have to sort of work with nature. If anyone's listening, the crayfish aren't a problem anymore, by the way.
Don't talk about crayfish. They're literally the bane. As a real bait enthusiast, they're the bane of my fucking life. I fish on the Cotswold Water Park. Obviously, we've got tons of lakes here. Most of them rammed with crayfish, and it really takes away from what you want to do bait wise. Like it really. I mean, the crayfish levels here are next level. Like you cannot get away with anything other than either a wooden ball or a very robust plastic bait.
Yeah.
Foam doesn't make it. You know, they're very tough.
I mean, different levels of problems on there. I mean, at one point I tried making a bait that was it would work on water as well as Poisson Chat in France, you know.
Yeah, Sean spoke about that. No, he didn't actually. He didn't speak about that, but I've read about that years ago. Sean Harrison, I'm sure he wrote about a bait or an ingredient or something like that that the Poisson Chat didn't like. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah, I think the myth is that they don't like rosehip isotonic. I think that's the myth.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't think it was rosehip he was writing about.
But there might be something. I mean, they're basically blind, you know. So on a sunny day, you can scoop them out with a landing net. So whatever you make, it has to have no sense of smell at all. I mean, so even if you're making like a cereal-based boilie and you put egg in, and it smells of the egg, you know what I mean? And obviously, the more you take out of it, the less appealing it becomes to the carp as well. I mean, that is a tough one. I mean, I did once make a bait that was more or less bream-proof, you know, which was quite a mad concept.
Fucking hell! What Carp liked it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't get that ingredient anymore. I did do some research to try and find out what the components of it were, and I've got that filed away on my disk somewhere. But it's not a project I need to go down. I mean, we fished this lake in France. We were potentially going to buy it, and I had 3 rods out for 3 days. And there was very few carp left in it, to be fair, and we didn't catch any. But then I went over to a different bait and caught a bream straight away, and we ended up having a bream match on a 4th rod, and we had about 200 pound each over the course of a day. And yet the carp rods out on this bait, didn't have a single take off them. And then over the course of the year, I put it out on my database to, probably about, I don't know, 1,000 people. Has anyone caught a bream on this bait? And I did one single spot, which was interesting.
Are you able to tell us what the ingredient is or what the compound is?
It was a farm shop product. So the flavour, I don't expect that was anything to do with it at all. It was Nash banana oil palatant and a maple flavour was the attractor. It was a bird food. But although I think there lies a story, I don't think they're keen on sunflower oil. So that's one possible dot. I don't think bream like sunflower oil, but there was this one particular brand of animal feed product that I used to put in it. It was really, really good attractor. It smelt, it was a green powder. It smelt like vinegar. It was very, very acidic. It was quite pungent, and you could just about smell it through the sweetness of the bait. It was a really good attractor. But then it was a little company, a little family-run company, and they stopped trading. Which is a killer blow, really. You find something good. It's happened loads of times.
Yeah, you mentioned the Nash banana oil palatant. I used to use those oil palatants, they're called palatants, as I understand it. They're basically just flavors on an oil base, so they sort of repel the silt, and I believe they have more of a gustatory response to the carp, and that's where they got the name from. Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, every single one in the line is a good product.
Yeah,
definitely.
They're not produced anymore, are they?
Are they not?
Not by Nash, but Catch It Labs. You probably know him, Jason.
Yeah.
The old boy in Catch It,
Terry Clark.
Yeah, was he used to formulate with Gary Bays, didn't he?
Yeah, Terry used to I think he was the original lab guy for Nash.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure, but I think he also invented the airball pop-up mix.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. I know a couple of other people might claim it, but I'm pretty sure Terry originally had the first idea.
Have you looked at his current flavors at all or not?
Yeah, I still get a couple of things off of Paul, who does it now.
Yeah, yeah.
They're good. They tend to be a lot weaker than I used to use them. But then that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because we're creating food items for fish health, rather than something to carry around sniffing. So
yeah,
I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
His Scopex is pretty strong. Have you tried that?
Yeah, definitely. But again, I mean, bitric acid is pretty strong. That's the difference between English and American chocolate as well, is they put butyric acid in their chocolate.
Yeah.
And it gives it like that sickly taste, You
Yeah.
either like it or you don't.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke about I think last time when I was on the phone to you, we spoke about Mega Spice. That was some. I mean, I wish I could get that now. Is that a flavor that you know much about, the ins and outs of?
It isn't, and the main reason was because I like the Ultra Spice so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the few that I still actually have. Well, I've got 10 litres actually of the original one. All I need now is like 500 bottles, to pour it into, and I'll be minted, right? But I could see no reason to change. I think Rod's statement at the time was that he couldn't get one of the ingredients for the ultra spice anymore, which is why it changed. But I don't know how that holds up, because I've got that recipe and I could still make it, and I can still make it virtually the same.
I mean, yeah, as I remember, I mean, that was his main winter flavor, right? That was his prized winter flavor, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. So talk to me about the mega spice. Did it have like a sort of an almondy note to it at all? Am I along the right lines?
Maybe. I think it had. Did it have furfural in, which is got a slight almond hint to it?
Yeah. I mean, it's compound. It's called benzaldehyde. It's actually one of the things that goes in like C4 Semtex. So you know, if you're ever flying, it's probably not the best bait to take with you, like, you know.
Sniffed out.
Yeah, it
That's
would take
actually
probably.
hilarious.
I'm sure you could explain it away, but not before you had a couple of Heckler and Kochs rammed in your face.
Do you know what? Sorry to interrupt. I've got to say this. With going back to the wasps and their, chemoreception, me and Pete used to fish with someone called Malcolm, years ago in Cornwall, and his son was developing this like gun type thing where they would place a wasp in it, and the wasp would sniff out, I can't remember whether it was drugs or explosives, and it would, this gun that the one wasp was loaded into would, read back and say, oh, look, there's fucking whatever there. Absolutely fucking incredible thing. Just thought I'd
no, I mean, insects play their part, right? I mean, we used to go to football on a Saturday, and within 10 minutes, the whole windscreen would be covered in dead insects. I mean, you can do that journey now, and it doesn't happen. You know, they reckon that we've wiped out something like 60% of all insects in the last 20 years. And whilst people think that's a good thing, unfortunately, it's not the mosquitoes, is it? It's all part of the pollination and what the birds eat and the natural environment, which is part of the work DEFRA, I think, are doing to making the anti-pesticide crops. But yeah, these animals, they're incredibly home to their own environment, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you might hate wasps, but I mean, literally with this additive, you would take the lid off it and they would just appear out of nowhere. You know, you'd be inundated in the things.
Talking of drink, I'm just going to grab another bottle out of the fridge. 1 minute.
Oh, you could have been doing that. Never mind. What were we talking about? Ultra Spice, weren't we?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're an Ultra Spice man. I mean, is that one of the flavors that you feel you could recreate?
Yeah, I've got a fair reserve of it, I think, actually, in all honesty.
Like an old batch?
Yeah, I've got at least 10 litres of the original, and I've got 2 or 3 different copies that I've done from different places and different times. It's not something I even use at the moment either, because it doesn't sort of sit right in what I'm doing. But again, every now and then you just fancy a bit of reminisce, don't you? And you make up something and you think, oh, that was all right. I used to
see two questions for you, and I'll ask them together because I'll forget otherwise. I mean, would you, if it's an old batch of that flavor, would you trust that to be as effective as it once was? Second question is, what do you mean when you say it doesn't fit into what you're doing? How doesn't it fit into it?
It's just a label that doesn't seem right for the bait. So what the bait I'm currently working on really is sort of fishy. Now there's no reason why you couldn't have a spicy sweet bait flavor to it, but it's quite strong, and I don't really. So it's the bait I'm currently doing is virtually organic. Okay, I mean I've got half a mil of smoked salmon in it, and I've got half a mil of red liver oil in it, but they're just to give the end user some substance, right? What's actually in that bait, like the additive is what I want the fish to sense and smell,
Mm.
I don't really want them detecting anything else in it.
Yeah, fair enough. So if you did want to roll a different bait and you wanted to use the Ultra Spice, would you be confident in that old batch, which must be God knows how many years old now?
I probably would use it, but the quick answer to the question is, if I had something better, that's the reason why I haven't used it already. Probably,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's an oil. I mean you can stabilize oils by putting things into them and blending them, and you can do things with them, but that they still do oxidize, they still do go
Yeah.
rancid.
Yeah.
It's not
How,
fish oil, which is the worst. Well, hemp
yeah.
oil, crikey, what I mean, fresh hemp oil will change color literally within a
Yeah.
week sometimes.
Yeah. How old is that Ultra Spice that you've got?
It's probably 25 years old.
Fuck.
Yeah,
It's gonna, even if it hasn't gone rancid or oxidized, it will have denatured. The different.
I might have a look at it now we've talked about it,
Yeah.
because it's literally it's like the flavor archive is literally just a room like full of smells and bottles and shit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably surprise myself with what's in there, but it's not valuable to the public because it's not in the little bottles with like the
Yeah.
labels. Yeah. So one of my friends, he's got a hobby. He goes metal detecting, and this guy he buys his coins off him and he melts them down and represses them so they look clean and mint.
Okay.
So effectively, it's cheating. But if you carbon dated it, which no one's going to, but it's the authentic materials. It is from that time period, So I would have to get lots of little labels made up and distress them.
Mate, I'll be honest, it ain't worth fuck all. Just you give it to me, mate. I'll give you my address. Send it off to me.
Honestly, I find it incredulous. You know what I mean? But again, like when we went over at the start of the year, we wasn't sure whether we was going to get turned back because of the COVID. So I did like a little pack of paperwork saying I was going over for essential work and permission from the local mayor and all this sort of malarkey.
Yeah.
But we hid our gear. I had a little set of centuries, mate had a little set of Hutchie travel rods, and we hid it at the bottom. And no one even asked, but that was our story. We was going over to do essential work. And Ian said, I can't wait to use these old Daiwa reels. There'd be a trip down, of nostalgia. I've not used them for 30 years. And within a day, he was like, oh my God, I can't stand this crap any longer. It's doing my nut in.
Yeah.
But the market for it's insane. People want it. But, there's a reason they made something new because it's better.
Yeah. Is that your belief with flavors as well? I mean, that you were a big fan of the Ultra Spice, as were many people. Do you feel that there's just better options out there in this day and age?
Not necessarily. It's so from a flavorist point of view. We're not talking fishing, so it depends what your application of that flavor is. So you have to look at boiling points. You have to look at acidity and things because it could be for anything, right? It could be for soups, it could be for cakes, it could be for drinks.
Yeah.
So that was the origin of the industry, and we've just bastardized it for our own needs, really. So the industry is what it is. We know how to make every type of smell, every type of taste, to whatever ingredients are permissible for any particular thing. But they're not. I don't think they're ever going to be massive, huge edges. Really. So, I mean, someone told me a story this week about this guy rang me up and I had a chat with him like we're doing for like about an hour. And he said, I feel really sorry, mate. I'm not going to buy any bait. Someone's just given me 50 kilos of your bait. And he told me the guy's name. And I said, what, is he not using it? And he said, no, he's just joined this new syndicate. And everyone on there is using somebody else's bait. I don't know whether it was Mainline or CC Moores or something. And he said they've all got this idea that everyone will put the same bait in, and it'll work better for them. Now, to me, you're literally just chucking a straw in the hat, and you're taking your share of whatever comes around.
Yeah.
You know?
You're going to get the same results as everyone else, aren't you?
Yeah, if you use the same bait as everyone, you're going to catch the same as everyone.
Yeah.
But even that's not true, because the best anglers, the best locators, the best watercraft, they're still going to catch more, that bigger share of them. So it might be an edge for like a poor angler, you know, to dovetail onto someone else. But I don't see it as being any benefit to anyone other than that.
Yeah. So I mean, let's. I'm like harping on about the same point. I'm aware of that, but let's say I loved the Ultra Spice. I really wanted to use it again. Obviously, I can't buy it from Rod anymore. What would you say to someone like me who really wants to get their hands on that flavor? Should I just give up hope, or do I look?
No. I'd say that I'm reluctant to say this, because I'll turn on my phone in the morning and I'll have shitloads of emails. But yeah, I mean, I've got a product that I'm happy that would do exactly for me what the original product did, provide the same sort of results, you know. Smells exactly the same. But then going back to where we probably started this interview, it's the difference between having your mum's shepherd's pie and my mate's mum's shepherd's pie.
So this now sounds like I've rigged this up and we've planned it. Well, I had no idea you had such a product. So you sell a flavor which is basically a modern version of Ultra Spice, is that right?
I don't sell them. No, they're sort of in my friends call it my flavor museum. Right. You know, occasionally people ring up and say, "Have you got this? Have you got that?" Or, you know what I mean? And to be honest, I don't even know half of what I've got. You know, it needs sorting out. It needs a couple of days of being in there and, you know, throwing away stuff I don't want and rebottling and cleaning up and labeling and seeing what is actually there. But I know for a fact there's 2 or 3 versions of Ultra Spice, which are very, very similar, but spanning different decades, if you know what I mean.
Right. How old's your youngest one?
Probably a couple of years. Yeah, as recent as that. Yeah.
And that's got all the same different ingredients that Rod's Ultra Spice has in it.
It's yeah. So this was kind of the weird thing, because I mean, like Rod did. I remember him saying that he couldn't get one of the ingredients anymore, but I've got the original recipe and I've got 2 versions of the recipe, and they all look the same, just but different quantities of stuff, if you know what I mean. But basically the same ingredients. I think, you know, sometimes we do a bit of marketing, don't we? You know what I mean? If you have a lot of one bait, you might advertise that one and try and get rid of a bit and make space for something else, you know. Or it might be that Rod himself just liked the new one better, you know.
The Mega Spice,
yeah. I mean, he definitely said the Mega Spice was a better version. I mean, but you know, at the time, like it was, I'm probably going back to like when I was fishing in the UK, and like I had a couple of winters fishing with the Ultra Spice, and I was very, very happy with what I caught, and I would change. I would keep exactly the same label, but every single week I would change something in the base mix, so I could learn out more about the bait. I mean, in those days, I also used to fish a little place in Saffron Walden with Lenny Middleton, and he was a crazy dude. He was blind as a bat. He couldn't even see his lead land on the lake. He used to turn his ear 90 degrees and listen for a plop, you know, and like the resolution of the plop would tell him how far he was from the far margin or anything. You know? He was the other way. He would always fish with chickpeas, but he would piss around with his rigs all the time. And he used to do this thing with his film canister with a matchstick, and he would wind up this band in it, and it was like a self-striking rig. And I'll tell you what, I was talking to someone, I think it's in one of my books, I think it might have been Alan Taylor about it. And then I sort of remembered that I had actually seen something similar on the bank with him. But he always, when he come round, like he used to just walk round, and he'd always come on scrounge for Nurofen. He always had a headache, you know. And I'd be talking to him for 5 minutes, and he'd go, "Is that you, Jay?" And I was going, yeah, I'm the bloke who always gives you the Nurofen, mate. I was like, oh, fucking hell. You know what I mean? He was, how he even got there, I don't know, because it was in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? He must have driven there.
Mm. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, but he was so in depth with his rigs, and he used to keep these notebooks of all these components and the tests and how many fish he had caught on them. But his test medium was the chickpeas, you know, so that was the non-variable factor in the equation. And over those 2 winters, my non-variable faction was the ultra spice, you know what I mean? And then like I would knock 1 week, I would knock the casein down and maybe try some ginger biscuits in there or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Do you use secret agent at all, Jace?
Yeah, but it's one of those, isn't it? It's evil and it lingers. And if it gets on your stuff, you know what I mean, it stays there. I mean, there's called Skato. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
It's a little white powder, and it smells of absolutely nothing at all. But when you mix it with alcohol, it smells. It doesn't absolutely reek, but it smells. But it will not go away, you know. And it gets sort of, if it gets on like on a phone case or something, ultimately you'll need to throw that phone case away because it will just drive you mad, you know. It's just the most awful thing. I mean, it's used to use it to make up a thing called meat base, which was the first step to a lot of the flavors that did. Just a horrible, horrible thing, you know. And that, sorry.
The audio's dropping out from someone.
Okay.
A little bit. Are you getting that, Pete, or not?
It's fine my end, to be honest.
Is it? Fucking hell, it's my end then. All right, carry on, boys. Sorry.
Yeah, no, secret agents like that, isn't it? It's a pun. It's very pungent. I mean, I think Gary Bays calls them permeators. You know, when you boil them, they fill all the space and air around you. You know what I mean? They'll fill the whole active. You'll be smelling it 2 days after you've boiled it, sort of thing.
Is that rich in TMA, the secret agent? Was it?
Yeah, very possibly.
Yeah. That's an interesting ingredient, isn't it? Trimethylamine.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the fish flavors as well also have trimethylamine in.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, you know, that sort of rancid, nasty vinegary smell, but you can sort of pad it out and you can make something with it. I mean, I once upon a time, this is another little story that there'll be in that book somewhere. At Nash, we used to have a hot tap that didn't work. You know, it worked, but cold water came out of it. And the monster crab recipe necessitated for every 25 litres of flavour, you would have to have 2 litres of water to dissolve some of the powders. Now, I used to make up big batches. I couldn't see any point in making a 25-litre batch when I could make enough concentrate to make 100 litres. So this particular day, I was making concentrate for 100 litres of monster crab. Anyway, it was in the bucket, and it was sort of first thing in the morning. It was a carry-on job from the night before. I think I'd gone early to a dentist or something, and no one had told me that they had fixed the hot tap. Now, this bucket, I had a mark on it, and I just used it for the monster crab, so I knew that I needed to fill the bucket up to that level for it to be the right amount. So anyway, I opened the tap up, and this boiling water came out. Well, trimethylamine boils at 40 degrees, you know, and this sort of 60, 70-degree tap water went into the bucket, resulting in 100 litres of monster crab completely over my head.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So you have to have it in, because it's basically a gas, isn't it? The TMAO, you have to have it in an alcohol base, right?
Yeah, you do, and you have to have it in special storage as well, heat station storage.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of flavors that had the TMA in, solar squid and octopus. I think I might be wrong here, so I might be making a fool of myself. But going back to the Nash palatants, which we keep banging on about, me and Pete used to use those a lot. We really rated those. I think even the salmon had TMA in. I don't know if you're involved in the palatants or not, but that was another really good flavor for me. The salmon oil palatant.
Yeah, it was in the salmon. And was there a crustacean as well?
Oh, I didn't use the crustacean if there was one.
Crustacean, and it was also in the sweet corn extract, which then became the Ease range, I think.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
but again, by nature, most of them higher pH flavors, right?
Yeah.
So if you say like the Tutti is incredibly low. I think it's maybe 1.5 or 2, something like that.
I thought yeah.
Yeah, and the crab squid probably the other end of the. No, I'm not sure about the monster crab squid and octopus is about 8.5 pH, I think 9 pH.
Yeah.
I know someone gave me a monster crab at the show once, and they said, "Can you tell me what's in this?" And I put a little bit on my tongue, and it virtually melted it. You know, there was, I think there was like a cod liver oil glug on the table or something, and I just picked it up and drank it because it was melting my tongue. It was like cryoponic acid or something. It just went straight through me.
Jeez.
So never try. If something, I naturally taste things, you know, all ingredients. Now, if someone gives you a liquid, I just have a sniff and leave it at that, you know.
Do you know what? I've started getting bait from Kenny Gates, and
Yeah.
you go in there, and the amount of fucking things he makes me sniff and taste, and I leave there with like a numb face. You know, he's absolutely mad on that stuff. But
That's probably because he's got a passion for it, though, you know, and wants to
he's
share
got
it.
such a he's amazing. He's got such a passion for it, and it's lovely to see. That's how it should be, isn't it? And obviously, you're exactly the same.
I mean, I'm the same. There's not much I hide, really. Like if I ever do this book, you know, there's a few things give away in there that you know, people might be interested in, but we'll see. It depends on how my life pans out over the next sort of 12 months, really, you know.
I hope you do it, mate, for selfish reasons, just because I want to read it. I hope you do it. It would be good. It would be great, mate. It would be well received, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I say it's, you know, too many nights, really, or lots of night work and research. And the internet's a fantastic tool, you know, and I use everything else, LinkedIn and all different Alibaba and God knows what, you know, and all of those. And generally speaking, if you go around all the suppliers, you hear the same sort of names crop up occasionally, but it's very unusual you hear of some random bait company that's been onto anyone. I've wasted a lot of my life in pursuit of fishing ingredients, that's for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned your book. When you mentioned it, I reached across to my little shelf to my left. I've got your first book. I think it was your first book. It's the only book I've known you to do, which is The Only Way is Carp, which I'm guessing was a play on the words of The Only Way is Essex.
Yeah, that was the last one, actually. I think it was 2012. So there was overseas carp adventure and carping journeys, which are sort of the same things, really. A few chapters of mine and a few of my friends and a few of the people I know. And, you know, it's mainly sort of venue based. I mean, this thing is sort of, it's quite personal, really. You know, it goes into the stories quite in depth, and like I say, the bait chapters, you know, it gives away a few little things, and, you know, but just provokes people into thinking. I mean, no one wants to be given all the answers, right? You don't want to be put it on a plate, but sometimes just chewing the fat and having these types of conversations with people. I mean, I find when I'm fishing on the bait sessions with my mates, we'll sort of work it out between us. You know what I mean? If we're not getting any action, we'll sort of chew out a few scenarios and we'll come up with something in the end, you know. But they're all the little stories that make it, right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, if I'm reading a carp book, that's what I want. I want those little like the funny stories and the different mishaps, and I mean, it never ceases to amaze me how carp angling really, it attracts characters, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah,
it's, I mean, anyone that spent a long time on the bank, we've all got these stories, you know. It never ceases to amaze. And those are the kind of books I like to read. You know, I don't want to read about the latest fucking rig and all that. Yeah, it's interesting to a point, but what really keeps me, you know, hanging on to every word is those stories of these different occurrences. And you know, that's a big part of carp angling to me, to be totally honest with you.
of course it is, you know, and you'll always look at it in a completely different way from how someone else views it as well, you know, the
Yeah.
situation. I mean, you know, the fact that after sort of nearly 40 years of doing it, I'm still massively learning it. I mean, there's a little lake behind mine in France, and it's about 2.5 foot deep, literally at most, you know, and it's got fish in there to 60 pound. And you think there's barely enough water to cover them, but you can't hardly see them. But they're so freaking hard to catch. I mean, I've virtually given up. I mean, it would be a case of I'll walk out and I'll place my rig and I'll walk back over my line. I'll throw a bucket of slop all around it. All the fish will immediately go straight to the other end of the lake, and then I'll give it another hour, and then I'll cast 2 rods in there and spook them out from there back to where I was started.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, they are wild creatures, and they have like that natural spook factor. But the main thing is, you know, the water quality isn't that great. The dissolved oxygen's very poor in the summer. The temperatures, the water's very, very high. And I think they just go torpid. You know, they don't move around a lot, so they don't use a lot of energy, and they don't need to eat a lot. I mean, the ones I have hooked, you know, you just literally reel them in like bream. You know, they're very disappointing. So for that reason alone, I stopped fishing it. But I thought bait would be the massive game changer in there, you know, and it sort of just wasn't. It's just that the conditions are, because it's so shallow, it's just never really right for fishing, you know.
It sounds like bait should be the thing in theory. I mean, let's say we were to create the ultimate bait. Do you feel that the ultimate bait, you know, quote unquote, would vary depend on the type of location, the stock? Would you create a bait differently for older fish, or, you know, a lower stock venue than you would for say younger fish in a higher stock venue? Or
I don't think so as such. So on my lake particularly, you know, I've watched the fish when the water's clear early season. You know, I've watched them and how they feed, and some of the old originals, they sit very, very low to the bottom, and they move very, very slowly and deliberately. And in their case, I've sort of lightened the bait. You know, I've put a bit of wheat germ and a bit of soya isolate, you know, a bit of sodium caseinate, and it's something to make the bait almost all like wafters, you know. So the little suck will take it flying into their mouth and try and figure a better response. And it has worked, you know. I mean, I've now caught most of the fish in my lake over 5 or 6 years, but the ones I desperately want are still some of the old originals. You know, just they don't get caught a lot, you know, because they feed and move very slow and deliberately. I can't get it out of my system. You know what I mean? Somewhere in me there's this crazy desire to know how I can make things that are effective.
Yeah, I think that goes with all bait guys as well. Do you know what I mean? It's we all tinker, and me and Sam say it all the time. Is you're always sort of just striving for something new. It's part of the hunger, isn't it? The research, it's rewarding. Do you know what I mean? Like the research, the putting it together, and when you start catching a few fish, and especially in your position where you can sell a bait to the public and they're getting the benefits from it as well. It's kind of all part of that sort of like buzz for you.
Yeah, I mean, I did a newsletter today and I sent it out, and it was all doom and gloom, you know, like we've shut the factory for 2 weeks, and I don't know what the score is. We're taking bait abroad, and you know, I'd like to give you good news about France and your lake bookings. And one guy messaged me back and he said, "Jay, here's some photos from last year. Beat my PB 2 or 3 times. Amazing bait. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate everything." And and all the input you put. And it's just like little touches like that, just sort of give you a lift, you know, because you think no one needed to do that. No one needed to take 5 minutes out of their day to write that email or, you know, say thank you. And it's sort of, you know, it gives you sort of like a big up buzz, you know what I mean? It does. I mean, obviously I love catching carp, and, you know, I think I might have offended people by putting up how many pictures I put up this year. You know, 'cause I think people were trapped in their house, and I've had just a crazy, crazy season. But I enjoy seeing other people succeed as well, you know.
100%, yeah.
Contributing to that. So another way of looking at it with tailoring baits, I think it's more important on the continent, and I think it's more important with the other type of fish that or nuisances you're trying to combat in the swim, you know. So I think as an angler, you need to have a think how your swim's going to look, you know, 10 minutes after you've cast out, what the picture's going to be like an hour after you've cast out, what the picture's going to look like 12 hours after you've cast out. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a swim where there's just a hook bait left in it and nothing's happening, you're literally waiting for a fish to pass, aren't you? Right. So I'm all for trying to make things happen, whether that means that, you know, I put a bait boat out full of like sloppy hemp powder and boilie crumb, like with some coloured liquid in it, you know, just to stir the water up and reinvigorate it. Make stuff happen. But I mean, on the continent, certainly, you know, lots of nuisance fish. You have to think, what am I going to have in like sloppy bait? What am I going to have in solid bait? How hard do the bait's going to be? I think the UK is very similar in the lakes and the way we fish. You know, the continental anglers that I see now, you know, people like the Dutch, have sort of moved ahead of us because they're really adaptable. They can fish lakes, canals, rivers, any sort of scenario, you know. They have more diverse waters.
Yeah, for sure. Do you, I mean, just to keep it on the theme of flavors, I mean, not that we need to do that at all. I don't know why I keep harping back to them. I guess I kind of see, you know, you as our opportunity to really get an insider's view of flavors, because obviously you've done a lot of work with them, what with working between, you know, Nash and obviously RD Campbell's. Do you look at, in terms of, you know, the time of the just to build on what you've just said, the time that the bait is out there, would you look at combining different flavor bases? So say like a glycerol base, which is generally going to be slower leak off than another base. Do you look at combining them to have a prolonged leak off, or do you look at, well, okay, I'm going to fish a water where actually the bait's got to be out there for a long time, so I'll get a slower leach off? Do you go to that extent or not?
Yeah. When I'm putting a bait together, I try and work out like a schedule of attraction for it. So I mean, a lot of people would disagree that it's even possible, but making a lowered acidic base mix through adding organic acids to it and having a flavour that's going to physically expel. I mean, some people will say that it's impossible to do, but, you know, I'm pretty sure I've had some good results doing that sort of thing. But as a rule, with any bait, I'm always trying to sort of open up the texture, kick stuff out and kick attraction out of it and make it more digestible. I mean, things like the essential oils and the powder flavors you can use to keep an inherent taste to the base mix. If you haven't got one, you know, it's sort of like you don't want to end up 2 days in with something like a bit of soggy pasta on the bottom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, you know, fish meals to some extent will still have some flavour, although they might have some of the flavour from the bottom, depending what you're fishing over. But you can have sort of long, medium, and short-term attraction.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly when I make hook baits, I do like 3 or 4 soaks and leakages, and like with the winter ones, I've been working on like coatings with these lipids and things. I mean, but again, you have to put it in like an angling experience. So, I mean, if you can be bothered to sitting there rolling paste balls and putting in paste, now the attraction is going to come straight out of that. It's easily digestible, easily eatable. You know, you can have incredible results, but who can be bothered with it? So I hijacked one of my mates' bookings over to Moulin de Me this year in July, and we had his two friends were on the other side, and we were on the other side, and it was seriously hot. I mean, it was touching 40 degrees, and the guys said to us one night, he said, "Mate," he said, you don't stop. I'm watching you in the swim. You're up and down. You're in the water. You're buckets. You're stirring and tipping and grinding. He said, just all day long, you don't stop. What you're doing? And I said, bait. I'm just all the time prepping bait, messing around with bait, and I think people would be staggered how much bait I use at times, but it's everything, what I mean? It's flake maize, it's ground bait, it's particle, it's crush boil, it's whole boilies, bits of pellet, all sorts. But I said, I think I said at the start, 10 times now I've caught more than a ton of fish. Now, if you go back to sort of Alan and Kevin's video, Shanty Cock, sort of year 2000 or something, people went, Jesus, what I mean? They've caught a ton of carp in a week, like big carp. That's just insane. And now doing that in a week on my own and probably going to bed at night and not fishing, it's crazy. I mean, it's where can the sport go? But you have to have those fish in front of you, but you can't catch them without bait. All of those big catches have all been made on serious amounts of bait.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as this podcast goes, not in the grand scheme of things, but as far as this podcast goes, obviously we're very well known for our hook baits and focusing on the attraction of that, which I feel is very different from formulating a feed bait. Have you looked into hook bait formulation as a different entity almost to general feed baits to optimize it? Because I think there's a lot of differences there and you can capitalize on a lot. If you're making a bait that only needs to be sucked in once, you can do a lot more with it than you could with a bait that has to be eaten en masse, if that makes sense.
Yeah I mean, I've got a whole rucksack full of little tubs. Some don't see the light of day, like to the bait we're using this year. It's sat in my rucksack for 2 years. Now there's people call high attract hook baits, hook baits with lots of flavour in. They're not necessarily the best attraction baits, but they have their day, and I'll make those with 100% flavour. I'll use egg replacer and 100% flavour.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously. But then if you open a packet of fishy hook baits, after a year the fish flavours disappear, right? They just vanish. So that's one thing. Another thing might be a hook bait that's the opposite. I mean, it's a hard hook bait. It's meant to it's one shade lighter than your bottom bait, so it's meant to look like a washed out one, and it might be something that you've designed to sit in the swim for 2 days. So yeah, tailoring hook baits, definitely. Or if I'm fishing a single hook bait, I want it to be the best possibly balanced wafter, that just the hook will just sink it, over a load of slop. But then it becomes an object rather than a bait, if you see what I mean.
So yeah. To go off on a tangent, we're getting into rig mechanics now, but as you say, a perfectly wafting wafter, you get a big fish come in there and turn around a little bit. That thing is freaking swinging around as far as the lead and the hook length will let it. Does that worry you at all?
Well, if you watch them in the net when you land them and you've got something critical like that, and literally just watch it in the net and watch it just sucking and blowing and just seeing that thing flying up and down.
Yeah. And
you think, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? I could be using 2 table tennis balls and there'd be no problem in that going in, and like I said, I'm not really one for rig mechanics, but that sort of just gives you an insight into how they can feed.
Yeah, what I mean is, say a fish comes into the vicinity of your hook bait and it's a critically balanced wafter. It's not sucking in that bait for the moment. Your bait it probably is, but mine it ain't. And so it's just around that hook bait. It's moving around. Obviously, it's displacing water around the hook bait. You got a little wafter. It's that wafter's kicking around. It's all flinging up here, there, and everywhere. It's almost acting really, erratically compared to the other baits, which waft up and then float down. Do you see what I mean, or not?
Well, like I guess my type of fishing is different from most people, and that it's mostly session angling. So the sessions have become shorter when I've been doing work parties on my lake, but even they'll be 3 days. But generally speaking, they're a week. Going forward, I want to start doing longer sessions. I want to start doing 2 3 weeks away at places. But my fishing is basically putting a food source, a decent bait in the swim, feeding them, getting used to catching them. By day 4 and 5, I want to have the peak of my action. And then day 6 and 7, I want to start drying the swim up and maximizing takes and catching all the fish that have been in the feed, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Now, at the start of that session, it might mean, again, you've got to fish somewhere where there's enough fish to eat the amount of bait you're putting in. But if I'm getting there and I'm putting in, let's say I'm putting in 30 kilo to start with, right? So let's say I'm putting 30 kilo boilies in, 20 kilos a particle, 20 kilos of ground bait. So 100 kilos of bait roughly the first day. Now, it'll seem like a massive amount to some people. And I don't expect to be catching too much the first 2 days because I don't want to catch that many because I want the maximum amount of fish to come in and feel comfortable eating in my swim. And I'll start with a wider area and I'll make it a smaller area if I can. But also, the first couple of days, I want to use like a higher track bait or something that's going to perhaps get me an extra bite. You know what I mean? Put a couple of extra fish in the bag. But then by day 3, I want to be on the bait I'm feeding because they're going to be eating it. And I do like the culture type of baits, skinning up baits with like a coating of soluble proteins, vitamins and things, and fishing that as a high attract. And that literally is just to pick up bonus bites for those first couple of days. My fishing is all about feeding them, you know what I mean? Building a catch. Yeah. And I'm probably not selective in catching the biggest fish in the lake. I think I had this conversation with Steve. Steve said, you're never ever going to catch the biggest fish by catching the most fish. And that's obviously true. They're the oldest fish, they're the biggest fish, they've got there by design, they've seen a lot. If they see fish being pulled out by 3-ounce leads, then they're probably going to back off. So a lot of that's right, but I just love catching fish. That's in my nature, to haul through them. But generally speaking, whenever I go away, my mates always catch the biggest ones.
Yeah,
but I reckon 71 40s for 7 weeks fishing isn't too bad.
No, mate, it's fucking good. It's good. I was more on about the presentation of the hook bait, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
no, it's fucking good, mate. On it, you've. Do you know what? I've never fished abroad, not for carp anyway. I've never fancied it, but for you, you're obviously like that's your thing now, isn't it? You're very much an abroad angler, right?
Yeah, but it's about all of it. It's about going there, finding something different. Now, I don't want to be on a coach where everyone's getting drunk and shouting and screaming and drunk and spomming, as the video goes. I like going off grid to places where you don't even know what's in there. We fished like Lake Ontario, the biggest lake in the world. We fished canals. We've gone down to rivers, fished off boats. America is my next thing. Really getting out there more and exploring some of their big lakes. I've got a few contacts out there now. They're not massive fish by anyone's standards, but they're beautiful, wild, uncaught fish in beautiful surroundings. The world's a big place. Lots of places to go.
Yeah, America's the place now, isn't it? I think a lot of the UK carpers, and especially like the bigger names, are sort of dialing into America, aren't they? There's a fair bit of media now, isn't there?
Well, the Buffs was awesome. Did that in March. Loved it. The first 3 days caught nothing. It was, and then sort of I wanted to fish the way my friend was fishing with his pack bait and his sort of thing. And But then we sort of got together and we did a little bit of his thing and a little bit of my thing, and we sort of worked it out. And the conditions changed for the better, and we had some awesome buffs, like up to the lake record size. But it was great, go down for 6 or 7 hours fishing, then go out, do a bit of shopping, go to a bar, then go out for some food and some entertainment in the evening. Just magic, mate. Just absolutely loved it, Mad creatures as well. They're all like 70, 80 years old as well, those fish.
Serious? I see. I didn't realise that.
Oh, mate, they're prehistoric. Someone analysed them. And the place we was fishing, because it's a nuclear power station, it's got high security on and no night fishing. So the bow hunters and, the poachers and that haven't been on there. But they took a couple away and analysed them, and they reckon they were 70 to 80 years old, which only made them more appealing as well. So that was wild.
You see sort of buffaloes. I don't know what I mean. If I went over there and targeted them, I think of course it would do it for me. But sort of like watching it and seeing it, they don't sort of do it for me. But as a young kid, like I've always sort of grown up with game fishing and stuff, and fishing for predators, and the bass fishing scene in America does it for me in a big way. I went to Florida probably 4 years ago now. It's one of my biggest regrets. I didn't do any sort of bass fishing over there when I was there. But yeah, the American fishing scene's getting real big, and there's a lot of carpers sort of looking across the pond now.
Well, we saw like a massive show of fish about 400 or 500 yards out, and they looked like real big fish. And it was a big shoal, sort of 200 meters long. And I thought they must be carp or buffalo. And we talked to this guy, and he went out and had a look. And they were what they call hybrid bass or striped bass. I think they're quite like our sea bass. And they're in the lake, they're in there to 70 pound. So yeah, you could quite easily can be converted into that. But in a massive water. Again, locations, everything. On that day, if we'd been fishing for them, we'd probably have caught them. But yeah, that'd be a good challenge.
Yeah, there's I don't know where it is now. I want to somewhere sort of in the southwest. There's a zoo or somewhere, and they've got some buffalo carp. In sort of like a reptilian house or something along those lines, and you sort of walk over the bridge and you look down, and I mean these fish, I was looking at them thinking, Jesus Christ, like the proper sort of like, when you look at a fish and sort of like the cliche, like I could put a saddle on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they must have been like in a zoo, they must have been sort of 30-40 pound. Like these things are massive. I don't know what sort of size you were catching them to.
Well, we had the late record out, which was 62, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, there has been a 70 since. But got a funny story about fishing in a zoo in America. Basically, this was going back quite a few years. We found this hydro power station in Canada, and it had it was like a barrage. It had lots and lots of scaly mirrors in, which is obviously really unusual for Canada. And it was really nice fishing there. We had a lot of fish. And then one day we were talking to these two lads, and at the far end there's a zoo, and you can walk out and you can put like a quarter in this machine and twist it, and the trout pellets fall through the floor, which is a glass floor, and you can see the carp sucking the pellets underneath. Anyway, we sort of found it was quite an amusing idea for one of these lads to strip off, break up a blood capsule in his mouth, and swim underneath the glass, just as a school load of children walked out on the glass. Well, we could hear it for about half a mile away. It just kicked off. It went mental. And when the helicopters and the police, frogmen and divers turned up, we had to confess to it. And they weren't too pleased. But
no, I can believe it.
But it was as funny as, it was, and it's one of those things you'll always remember. But also on that zoo, with the bait theory still thrashing round, we'd planned to go to America to meet this guy, and I didn't want to leave this zoo because it was so good. So we had about 30 kilo of bait, and I persuaded my mate that we would sacrifice 20 of it, and it was a good HMV bait, and fire it in, and then we would come back in 3 days' time after we'd been to the States and fish there for the last 2 days. Now, if you ever want to know if bait can make a difference or the HMV theory does work, I mean, this was on a virgin water where the fish were hungry and looking for food. My God, you know, we were casting it. When we come back, we was casting out 4-ounce leads, and we were getting hookups before the lead even hit the bottom.
All right.
I think using one rod, we had 96 fish between us in that day to 40 something. You know,
Wow.
it was literally one a chuck. The bait was just pulsing out of them. You know, I mean, they couldn't have been more on it, possibly. You know.
Do you know what? So that was going to be one of my questions. Like when you were fishing, like you spoke earlier about fishing pack baits and stuff, and one of my questions was going to be to you, like, surely when you were fishing there, were you thinking sort of like, if I could just fish boilie now and get them on it for a few days, like this would really sort of turn my fortune, kind of thing. So was it boilie, this HNV you're talking about? Is this like a local boilie? Is this your bait? Is this?
No, that's what we'd taken over. I mean, we used to have this dodge where we'd go up with this massive rucksack that weighed about 60 or 70 pound. But obviously it weighed 20 kilos for the purpose of the scales. And then they would say to us, you can't put the rucksack on the plane, it has to go to outsized baggage. So we'd walk around the corner, we'd fill it up with leads and bait, and then we'd do it up, and then we'd stick it on outsized baggage with a stamp on saying 20 kilo. So that's how we used to always get it out there, and we'd have like 4 or 5 rucksacks. But it was different in America, and you had to understand the ecosystem. So these lads were coming down with these cast net things, and they were slinging them out, and they were getting these fish. They look like sprats, but I think they're called shad. And the net was full, so the lake was absolutely rammed with these little silverfish. And then at night, the Chinese would come down to catch catfish for the pan, and there'd be like 100 of them, all with their little bells all along the jetty. So clearly they were all catching them, or they wouldn't be bothering coming. So this lake was absolutely rammed with different types of fish. So I think if you were baiting up in advance, you know, that night, whatever you put out, however much you put out, would just get rinsed by these catfish. So I don't think there was any mileage in it, but they were very nocturnal. And by spodding corn and like soupy stuff in the day, we could get takes. But there was this filamentous weed on the bottom, like about 3 or 4 inches high. And I think the pack bait was just because it was about 4 inches high with a rig on top of it. I think it was just presenting it nicely above the weed so the fish could see it, you know.
Yeah.
And also where my friend had fished that area for 2 or 3 spots as well. So we could put bait out on it and get their attraction straight away, sort of thing. So it took a little bit of working it out because they're not carp and they're different from carp. But, you know, as a way of a change, mate, I loved it, you know, fantastic.
Yeah, no, I can believe it for sure. I can believe it.
I mean, every year I keep saying that I'm going to do. I fancy the Nile perch for one, and I fancy lake trout as another one. But there's so many places I want to go carp fishing. Whether I'll ever do it or not is a different matter altogether, really.
But when you say lake trout,
yeah,
what do you mean? Sorry.
Yeah, no, they're like a sort of a carnivorous type of trout. I mean, I guess in Ireland you'd call them ferox trout or something like that. But I mean, they grow massive. They grow. I think I've seen 100-pounder.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, I think so. But a specimen a big, good quality specimen would be 30 or 40 pound. They look just like a giant trout. Crazy fish, but they're a real cold water species. So you've got to go way north to catch them.
Yeah. Oh, mate, nice. So you're like, the USA sort of got a bit of future for you for the fishing then.
I think it's got the whole sociable vibe around it as well, you know. So I mean, Dale Hollow's quite a famous one at the moment. Steve might even have talked about that. So you can hire like a pontoon boat and you just go out into the total wilderness, but with all the supplies you need, you know, so you're not slumming it at all. And again, you're fishing for like really wild, scaly fish, you know, that probably never seen a hook before.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to use crazy amounts of bait in the States. We would get through we'd get through a 500 kilo of maize in a week, easy.
Wow.
We'd buy 2 dinghies, fill 1 dinghy with maize, go over and turn it over, and after 5 or 6 hours, you'd stop getting takes, and then you'd go out and you could see it had all gone, and you'd fill it up again.
But always, I bet in the States, like half a ton of maize probably isn't costing you a fortune, is it?
No. So one year we couldn't. The co-op shop had shut that we used to go to. We couldn't get any sacks, so we drove up to a silo in a brand new car like this PT Cruiser. I think it had about 50 miles on the clock, and the bloke put the hose in the back through the boot and just filled the car up,
Yeah.
And literally when the mate started going under like the throttle pedal and stuff, it's okay, stop now, mate. You know what I mean? But we're just sitting on 400 kilo of loose maize.
Yeah, quality.
We ruined that car, yeah.
Yeah, hire car, hilarious.
But yeah, so they're the memories. You don't necessarily remember all the carp you caught, but you remember the stupid, crazy things you did. Like everywhere we went on that trip, we had an inflatable tied on with lawnmower cable on the roof, and it ripped off all the paintwork on the car and everything. And when we took it back, we'd run out of money, and we had to push it into the airport because we had no fuel left. It was,
it's weird, isn't it, over there? Like things like hire cars, you get off the plane like at the airport, and you just walk out there, mate, and the keys are in the car. You just sit in a car, decide on what one, and off you go. Like it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. It's
a different world. I mean, so we was fishing this. Where I was talking about this power station, and this guy came out and started shouting at us because we'd parked on his grass and stuff. And anyway, within a couple of days, we was talking to him, and he was coming out and sitting with us, having a cigarette and a beer of a night. And a couple of days later, he was like, "I'm off to work. There's the keys to my house. Use the shower. Everything's unlocked. There's cold beers in the fridge like this." And we was going out there, and he went off to fish for this bass competition, and he had forgot his food, and he caught and ate a 5-pound bass, and it would have won the competition. It would have won him a boat and a trailer. But every time we went, we used to went many years in a row, like, and we'd look up the same people, and just the hospitality was crazy. Just go and knock on the door. Yeah, Jay, how you doing, man? Like, fucking wicked. I light the barbecue up. You know what I mean? Like, are you fishing tonight and stuff like that? Crazy.
That's it, mate.
Really good people.
Yeah, happy days. The old tailgate or whatever, barbecue on the back of a truck.
No, mate, he used to just literally sling us his house keys when he went to work and go, like, introduce my house. It's like, oh my God, we're mucky, dirty carp fishermen,
Yeah.
But, no, good times. I meant to go back for, I don't know, it's probably 20 years last time we went, and every year we still go. Yeah. I mean, we did it. We did it a lot. We did it to death, and it was crazy. And literally just fished out the boot of the car. The police would sometimes come and move you for camping because you can't camp. You have to be on a campsite. And, we'd just drive around and fish somewhere else. And everywhere we went, we caught. Like, it was wicked, mate. But
yeah. Oh, mate, you were doing it. So yeah, it's quite in vogue now. Do you know what I mean? So you were doing it a long time before.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And the way we did it was also very different. But just thinking about it now, there's more to the States than just sort of, the St. Lawrence and the Ontonabe and the Trent Seven, all of that. There's all those giant reservoirs and things. And one of my friends now, he's getting into a few sort of nice mirrors and stuff. So yeah, it's just doing a bit of homework and a bit of looking around and say beautiful places. The least of your worries is someone fishing opposite you, shouting out for fishing in their water when you've got 10,000 acres to yourself. But you can't. You have other problems where people obviously don't understand carp fishing, and using markers is hard. And one time we had our rods up, and these Vietnamese guys like deliberately took out all my mate's rod, and he just respooled them all with braid, and they caught up in his prop, and we were pulling them in the boat. And literally, they thought they were going to be filleted for tea, but It's all gone in the memoirs, mate. It all makes more sense as well, you know. I mean, I'm I'm always spending time looking to see where I can go next, and the list is just crazy. You know, I mean, there's no way. Um, I mean, Lake Bled. You know, we were probably the first guys to go out there,
Hmm.
and I think Alan read my chapters in the book. I did 2 or 3 chapters in the second book about it, and he
Yeah.
went out there and did the video, and now everyone wanted to go, and now the tickets are all sold out for the year, and you can't go.
Yeah. They've
But they
changed it, haven't they, on the back of Eurobanks, haven't they?
Yeah, but they're catching the same fish that we caught back then, but now they're 20 and 30 pound bigger, you know.
Hmm.
So I do feel like I want to go back and just have one nice fish out of it, but it's a punishing place to fish. You know, it just kills you. Yeah.
Mate, that's kind of, I think a lot of carp anglers on the back of Eurobanks want to go out there, but what an iconic place. Like, just picturesque, absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, we went 3 times, and like we were probably the only English people fishing it or that went there.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it was a learning experience. So in those days, I've helped out a lot of people since, you know, because I don't think in the early days you could catch fish without having corn, you know, possibly because it's so clear the fish were swimming off the bottom, or you know, a lot of the areas, probably 3/4 of the lake is 90 foot deep, right, 30 meters.
Yeah.
So there's only so many places you can actually fish, so many areas you can actually fish. I mean, stalking's a very effective way, or you fish like one of maybe 5 or 6 well-known swims that have got nice 10 to 12 meter depths. But you in those days you needed maize in the lake to catch the fish. And I made the mistake. I wanted to catch the bigger fish. It was boilies only and stuff, but the amount of people I put right, and then they went over there and caught good fish. I mean, it was. I feel like I've got a bit of unfinished business there.
Hmm.
But the world, mate, it's getting smaller all the time. You know.
Yeah. Well, that goes to our conversation earlier, doesn't it, about America? You know what I'm saying? It's sort of one of the, as far as carp fishing goes, it's relatively untapped, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, so we've been Canada when they've had their shooting matches, you know, and people spend a lot of money on their boats to go this carp shooting, and you know, obviously they hit the bigger fish because they're easier to hit, and you know they're slower moving and stuff like that. Um, and I think from a UK point of view, you know, the market's dried up a little because they just don't get big enough. You know, you can go and catch, if you're in the right place, you can catch 20 or 30 pound commons all day long, you know, and they'll pull your arm off. It's great sport. But, you know, those big top weight fish just sort of aren't there. Um, but who's to say, you know, in some of the other places, these massive, great deep reservoirs, you know, where the bow fishing doesn't come into play so much, and, you know, they have the seasons on there and stuff. Who knows what could be there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Christ, like where I live down in Cornwall, like a 30 pounder is a bit of a unicorn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all relative, isn't it? It's all relative.
I mean, when I first got my lake, it was completely overgrown. You know, there wasn't any swims. You couldn't even get to the bank. You know, literally, we used to clear areas just to get to the bank. And I bought it in February, and it was just an eyesore. It was just hideous. But you know, then I went back in sort of April and May, and you know, the buds on the trees and stuff were covering over all the ironworks and you know stuff floating around in the lakes, and it didn't look so bad. But the water was lovely and clear, and you could see these fish in there, you know, like really long, scaly fish and black fish, and thinking, oh my God, I didn't know any of these were in here. And that was so exciting, fishing for the unknown again, you
Yeah.
know. And it is a little bit of that is what the pioneering days were like, going back to sort of the 80s. You know, so much of it was unknown, and the excitement and magic of what was possible.
Hmm.
And a little bit of that has gone, you know, with the magazines, and the names of the fish and targets and the social media. And I mean, you read the books, and there's some like the Yately fish, there was almost a 24-hour surveillance on them with mobile phones, people reporting where they were all the time, you know, literally hounding the fish. it's sort of quite a long way away from the pioneering magic, if you know what I mean. But a lot of guys won't have ever felt that or ever know it. And the original breed of carp anglers now, sort of the generation that are probably just ahead of me, are sort of dying out and taking it with them, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sure guys that are in the States and places like that, or Japan even, they're now doing the pioneering stuff that we were doing 50 years ago. It's a new growing sport.
Yeah, no, definitely, 100%.
I mean, even the other countries, you know, your Croatias, your Bosnias, and that, they've gone straight into commercial carping, 24-hour enduros, long-range casting, spodding, spomming, all of it. You know what I mean? They've missed out all that early development, and they've gone straight into a ready-made sport. So, you know, there's big fish out there, but not so much of the mystery.
Yeah, I just find that weird, a lot of that. And you watch sort of like the World Carp Classic or whatever it is, these big competitions, and you like, just like you said then, you see that and it's like these guys who can cast sort of like 150 meters or something ridiculous, and it's sort of like, it feels like a lot of the magic's missing.
Well, double spooling, mate. You know what I mean? Fishing like a kilometre out in the lake and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my bag, you know. Fair play to anyone who does it, anyone who likes it, anyone who's into all that. But I go carp fish. I don't like to be told where to go and when to do it and how to do it. You know, I got cuss fish the same lake all their life. You know what I mean? And they go there to escape from their job, to escape the hassles, just to relax.
Mm-hmm.
And they just want a chance of having a bend in the rod, you know, and that's it. And they enjoy that, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can only catch what's in front of you. I mean, I love traveling. I went on some dating site the other day, like just a free one on Facebook, and some guy some guy put up like a massive list of countries. He put, how many countries have you been to? I've been to 5, and he had been to like Benidorm, Scotland, and Wales. And I was bored, so I counted it, and I put 73, right, and put liar underneath. And I thought, what? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I like travel. I've been to 73 countries. I recounted it. It was 74. You know, it's like, oh, mate, seriously? But if you can combine two things that you love, travel and fishing, well, you can't go wrong, can you?
No, happy days. Happy days.
Well, you can get arrested in the Ukraine for not having a visa. There's all sorts of things you can do, but that's also in the book if it ever comes out.
That's it. No, the book's got to come out, mate. You got to record it yourself. Audio book. We'll put it out to our podcast listeners. Sam, you are back in the room. Before we rein it in, obviously our listenership is massively bait issued. Is there anything you sort of wanted to pick up on before we sort of round things up?
Are there any flavors, Jason, that you can think of that, like, do you know what, they're done? We can't get those ingredients now. We're not allowed to put them into production, or they're not allowed in our country, or blah 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 blah. Is there any classic flavors that we wouldn't be able to replicate closely, do you think?
I don't think so, bro. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah, and I certainly don't think the end result would be any different. I think it's kind of a lot of it's like, so it's nostalgia, you know. People want to remember something from their past, and there's probably a little bit of elitism, you know. I mean, I saw that little Jeff Kemp book, Kempestini's Book of Baits, the other day.
Yeah.
Someone had paid £100 for it. It's like 8 pages long, isn't it, or something like that? His little catalogue.
Yeah. Well, 12 is it? Is it 12?
Yeah, and
it's fuck all, basically. Yeah.
I mean, if I remember right, there's a picture in there of a tramp, and he's got his recipe for horse pancreas boilies or something. You know, I mean, I've not seen it in a long time. And I think like Lee Jackson had a recipe in there for peppermint boilies or something. Yeah, but it's sort of that bit of history. I know people collect it; they collect it in the tackle and stuff. But as we said with the tackle, you know, I personally wouldn't want to use something 30 years old, because I keep buying new tackle all the time because
Yeah.
I enjoy using something
Yeah.
that works better and is nicer and feels good. You know, I got for a lot of rods in my time, and mostly it's because I can't go fishing enough. You know, so I'm sitting at home bored and I just buy a new set of rods.
Yeah. So fair enough. So to carry on from that vein, you've said to me before, there's 10 flavors that if you could only use those for the rest of your days, you'd be more than happy. Are you able to tell us what those 10 flavors are?
Christ, that's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so
I'm counting on the fact you've had quite a lot of brandy, so you're going to be loose-lipped.
well, I think we've probably mentioned most of them. So I mean, ultra spice is right at the top of the thing. So the green zing has obviously been a massive thing in my life where
Yeah, Pete's favorite. Yeah.
I've adapted it and mixed it into a plum on a similar bait. It's actually a diacetyl base, which is quite an unusual base.
I said it. Did you say pink zing or green zing?
Green zing.
Green zing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I call that plum zing. I've made that
for
like 10 years. So that's been a big thing in my life. The other spice that I would have is the one it's called sweet apple spice, or I called it MB2, which again is one of my own recipes. I still have some of the flavour, but Bob had the recipe on his computer, and for some reason Plant X can't find it. So,
do you have the original Tutti recipe?
I do. Yeah.
Could it be?
I believe it is. I've had it on my database for probably 20 years, and I was told it was. I've got about 5 or 6 different Tuttis on there, and they do vary quite a lot, and they vary quite a lot in boiling temperatures and viscosity. But yeah, I would say it was the one that Bob used to make anyway.
And could it be made exactly the same as it once was?
I'm pretty sure it more or less is, to be honest. Like you said, you know, I mean, it's properly astringent. It will take your breath away. You know, if you inhale it, you know, it will be like deeply. It will be choking you for a minute or so afterwards.
But many flavors could do that, couldn't they? To be fair,
yeah, they could. No one's missing out on any magic. Put it that way. You know, it's as good as it gets. I'd be happy to use it, as long as it's, you know, one of those versions. I mean, a lot of these users they don't even understand it's an oil flavor. I mean, one guy was saying to me that he was mixing it with tangerine oil palatant, and he couldn't get it to roll, and he couldn't understand why. And I said, well, you've got 30 mils of oil, like, you know, in your bait.
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean? He goes, no, I haven't. You know, I've got the bulk oil, I've got the oil flavour, and I've got the Tutti flavour. And I said, well, the Tutti flavour is an oil, mate. You know, it's all oil. And he didn't even realise that. You know.
I tell you what, though, that for me anyway, that tangerine oil palatant, that was a fucking good flavour for me. Very good.
Well, it's probably 75% pure orange oil. Pure orange oil.
Essential oil.
No, just like a pure oil. Then it has some mandarin oil, and a few other things. So I mean, most of it is just like a pure liquid. I mean, it's good as it is. There used to be a lime oil as well, which was quite good on its own, but again, not something that's desperately appealing to anglers, right? You know, a bit like that coconut thing.
Yeah, lime essential oil is a good one. Orange essential oil is very good. We've spoken about that extensively on previous podcasts. And tangerine essential oil, that is one of the best citrus-based oils I've ever tested. The tangerine essential oil. Yeah,
they're not nasty smells that will get you in trouble either, are they?
They're not. They're woman friendly, but do you know what? I've got that under control. I'm a lucky boy. I'm a very lucky boy. But yeah, interesting. I mean, talking of essential oils, you didn't say it, but I kind of got from how you were talking that you don't spend much time on essential oils. Is that true? And if it is true, why is that?
Well, a lot of the flavour recipes do have essential oils in them in small levels, like they will be very small levels. No, I like them. I mean, Hutchie used to do one called Spring Blossom. I've got no idea where it is. I'm racking my memory now back sort of 30 years. And I used to mix that with like a watermelon flavour of all things, and that was like a really nice fresh bait. And you can remember what it smelt like because used it for a long time and caught some nice fish on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that red carpy was one I really loved, but having smelt it in my flat for the last 3 days, I'm getting quite sick of it quite quickly now.
So where does that name come from? Red carpy? Because to me that makes sense.
It was a Duncan Kay thing.
Yeah. But where's
So,
the red come from?
It's a red dye, pure and simple. Yeah, red dye.
Well, the flavour that I had from that was not. It wasn't red. It was like a yellowy type of thing.
I believe there was all sorts. So I think he did. What his boilies? I think they were called Purple Patch, weren't they? So he did a range of.
No, that was a Gary Bays thing, Purple Patch, wasn't it?
No, that was much later. The original Purple Patch.
See, I'm younger than you, mate. Yeah. So I'm probably experiencing things that have been reinvented,
rehashed.
Yeah.
No, Purple Patch was when the Crafty Catcher boilies came out. I believe they also made a range for Duncan, which were called Duncan K Purple Patch boilies, and he also did Carp tracks, which were powdered additives, and Carp slimes, which were like pastes.
So for a while there was a Nash bait called Purple Patch, but you didn't ever produce it, did you?
They were actually doing it while I was there. Yeah,
that was it was
a purple coloured bait, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you never sold it, did you, to the public?
Yeah. So I mean, Gary had made some very, very nice recipes there as well, which never came out to the public. And then let's be honest, the Nash base mixes sometimes would have like 20 or 24 powders in them. Some of them would be quite complex, I mean, the instant attraction stuff, I used to call that Play-Doh, right? I received no sort of gratification from making trays and trays of that or overseeing trays of it. Just had no interest in it. And I don't doubt it caught fish, but it was a cheaper mate for the mass market. But I mean, there was some very, very good ideas that never saw the light of day, and some quite complex baits.
Was the Nash sort of the amber strawberry? Was that one of your sort of baits? Did you have a lot of input on that?
No.
I'm pretty sure that the original bait, the original amber trap base mix, is Sean Harrison's.
I think he said that on the podcast.
We spoke about that. Yeah.
I'm sure I've spoken to Sean about that as well. And I think the amber strawberry was Jim Shelley's input.
Okay.
The white colour and the strawberry combination. Yeah.
So I thought that was something to do with you. I must be completely on the wrong sort of path.
Well, the first sort of bait I did was like a spin-off of that. And we put the acids in that. That was like probably the first sort of commercial bait I started doing, really. That wasn't just sort of from my friends. The first mass produced bait was that sort of amber strawberry. But it was tweaked a little bit. It wasn't. It was a bit different from sort of how it came out.
Do you use essential oils much, Sean? Jason, or not?
I've over the course of 40 years, I've probably been through all of them.
Do you hold much weight in them now, or not?
Not massively.
Really?
Honestly. So I've got one pop-up that I make, which is it's a little bit of Tutti. It's mainly the plumsing, and it's got a little bit of buku in it. And they're my sort of go-to pop-ups. I've got another one which I used to call Cambridge Specials, which is a mix of basil oil and black pepper, and they're like in a dark brown. And again, they're a sort of go-to blank saver type bait that are always in my thing. But it tends to be more in sort of pop-ups or attraction baits, really, rather than bottom baits.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you mentioned Buchu. There's a few different variant. Well, actually, there's quite a few different variants of that. Which are you using? Do you go into depth of different types, or is the
Well, they vary enormously depending who you buy them off, obviously.
yeah.
I've got accounts with Sigma Aldridge and companies like that, so I go straight to the direct source and buy the proper stuff off the proper people in all cases, rather than your eBay sellers. But I mean, a friend of mine, Mickey, who does Galaxy Bait, he was involved with Shaggy when he did Darren, and he bought the company off him, and he carried it on as Galaxy Bait. So the original formulation of carp fishing with Buku goes back to him, and he still uses those same recipes as they were. But again, it's just completing a profile and something that just seems right to you. That particular pop-up, I've been using it for 20 years, and I just pick it up and I've got a bit of confidence in it straight away. They're part of the jigsaw, mate. I honestly don't see them as being radical game changers.
Yes, it fascinates me. I mean, you get such different opinions, don't you?
Well, like, I'm pretty much a maverick in my thoughts, and I don't really ever talk to anyone else about bait.
Yeah.
Because I don't go on the forums, because it just involves loads and loads of questions and punishment, if you like. I only fish either out of the way or with my own mates. So, but what it does is it sort of keeps your head pure, if you like. It stops you.
You're singing to the choir. Yeah.
It stops you being influenced by other people. If someone says to you, like, is it like Cell? Well, do you know what? It was probably 5 or 6 years before I'd even seen a Cell boilie. Yeah. Right? Why would I ever see one? You know what I mean? Unless I looked in a tackle shop, and then they'd be frozen. You just don't come into contact with other bait. But one of the things which is absolutely massive for me at the moment, absolutely huge, is fats and lipids. So if you read into it, the Krispy Kreme donuts, yeah?
Yep.
You see them as you walk into any supermarket, they're sitting there straight in your eye, all the different colours, all the different flavours. So the boring glazed one, no colour, no, I don't think, just a normal glazed donut, they sell twice as much of that as all the others put together. And the reason being is it is scientifically matched out to be 50% fat to 50% sugar ratio. And that is the perfect, if you like, thing for sort of, I don't know, human addiction to food, if you like. You know what I mean? That is the perfect ratio to make you want it. Now, again, fish if they can identify protein, they can identify calories for sure. Energy 100% comes from good fats and oils rather than carbohydrate, because it's so much easier to process.
Yeah, but we've got to unpack that, because are you saying that carp can detect calories?
Possibly, yeah.
But what is a calorie? Is a man-made mathematical equation of
and then
the rate
a unit of energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, high calorie.
It's not a compound. It's not a one thing.
No. So I mean, going back to the plumpy nut thing, yeah. So okay, not a very nice thought, but you've got a dying child starving to death.
Yeah.
You put a sachet of plumpy nut in them, they come back to life. Now, if someone's used all your plumpy nut in carp baits and they switched it for little bags of spinach, and you pump a bag of spinach in that kid's mouth, and I'm afraid that's going to be the.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good for him, would it? Fair enough, mate.
You mentioned you didn't want to tell us too much about the shelf lives, because you shared the recipes with Jeff. Are you on about Jeff Bowers?
Yeah.
Does he do shelfies? Does he?
He does. He's.
Fuck me, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he does. He's less enthusiastic about it than me, but
Yeah.
It depends how you catch him. Do you know what I mean? I've known Jeff many years, and you know we hit it off. But you know he's very careful who his friends are. I mean, I always said Hutchinson should be a millionaire, and he should have been, but Jeff should have been as well. You know, but Jeff just unfortunately he doesn't tolerate people at all. You know, he just basically tells them to fuck off when he gets bored of them.
Have you spent much time with him?
Oh, I spent loads of time with him. Yeah, we've got a few stories like yeah, been fishing and stuff together and what have you. But I mean, a bloke was ringing up not long back, and he was saying, "Do you do like ABS for less?" And he's like, "What are you talking about, mate?" And he's gone, "Oh, Nutrabaits do a thing called Nutrabaits for less, where they mix it with 50-50 mix and sell it like for less money." And he said, "You need to just fuck off." He said, "You need to just fuck off, mate. Like, fuck off now." And then there was another bloke. He was moaning about the baits being too soft and he couldn't get them out. And he said, "Don't worry, mate. I'll sort you right out. I'll send you something out in the post." And he hung up the phone and he got a spom off the shelf and he threw it at the pool and he said, "Stick that to Noddy in the post and don't send him any more bait." You know, but that's what he's like, mate. He's vicious. Well, he supports Tottenham, you know. Yeah.
That says it all, does it?
Oh,
Obviously, you're an Arsenal fan, mate. Yeah.
No, fuck no. Fuck
All right. Steady on.
No. I support Cambridge United. That doesn't upset anyone.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Other than me, 40 years
Jesus.
of suffrage.
Are they still playing football, mate, in lockdown?
Yeah, we're doing all right this year. Top of the up the top, mate. Top of the League Two.
Yeah, I'm mocking you.
No. It's thin pickings. You know what I mean? We had a nice little time between about 1990 and 92, but the rest of it's generally been quite hard work.
No, for sure.
I got no idea what you're on about. I don't follow football.
Yeah, it's like they kick a ball around, mate, like leather.
I think it's a fucking girls' game, to be honest with you.
Do you like cricket? You've got cricket. You've got to love it. I mean, I was brought up around it. I started off in like professional cricket, and you know, if someone's upset you, hitting them round the face with 5.5 ounce of leather at 90 mile an hour, it's a good way of settling a few debts. I tell you. Yeah.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Boxing, I like. I'm into my boxing. I'm into my MMA. They're the only two sports.
That settles the debt a little bit quicker, I must admit.
Yeah.
Who's the best heavyweight then?
What, boxer or MMA?
Yeah.
Fury, 100%.
Who box? Are you on about boxer or MMA?
Yeah, boxing.
Do you know what? At the minute, it depends. You know, when are you taking this? At the minute, I honestly think Tyson Fury is going to be really fucking hard to beat. Like, obviously, Anthony Joshua, he's got a puncher's chance, which a puncher always has a puncher's chance. At the current minute, I think, yeah, Tyson Fury is going to be a real problem for anyone. The odds are certainly stacked in his favor against anyone at the minute.
The thing that I can't get my head around in that first fight with Wilder, when he knocked him on the ground and his eyes were in the back of his head and he wasn't even in his body, and then 5 seconds later he was up on his feet in his fighting stance, and I'm thinking, how can that even be a thing? You know, how can you go from being unconscious catatonic to standing on your feet, ready to get on with it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Is he on the gear
He
still?
runs off different juice. Is
he running on Colombian juice? That's what I'm thinking.
You can't, mate. Not in modern day sort of sports like that. You can't get away with it.
You have different producers and people. He's so fucking big, which is what confuses people. But he's quick. You look at how quick he is, and you think, you know, how much effort must it take to move such big, long limbs so quickly? And then you think of what's moving those limbs. It's the tendons and the ratio of the ligaments to the tendons to the length of the bone that is moving. It's crazy stuff. So I mean, you look at that kind of thing, and yeah, he's definitely unique as far as
Yeah,
that goes.
made a different stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
did you ever see Mo Farah when he was on the Cube, when he was on that TV show?
No.
So that was kind of crazy. So no one, have you ever seen that program?
I've heard of it, but I've not watched it.
Yeah, so you go into like this transparent cube thing, and they have all these challenges, and you have to walk through lasers and throw things and do what shit. Anyway, if you have 9 lives to win £1 million, and no one's ever done it, and then Mo Farah went on there, and not only did he do it, he didn't even lose a single life in doing it. It was just phenomenal. Every game he just aced it, just like that, just made it look easy. And you're thinking, fucking hell, everything about that bloke, he's just made of different stuff, has different abilities.
Yeah.
Superhuman.
Like, what gets me with Tyson is he's got, first of all, he's got like the mind game things. Like, he's a Jippo and he's got a Jippo's mouth. Do you know what I mean? And that's the truth, though. And he has, mate. And like the mind games he has over people are just unique. And I think that's unique to him because of, number one, he's got the size and the ability, like Sam was saying, to move. I like Fury. I really do. I like Joshua a lot. Like, I really like when Joshua first started.
I quite like Dillian White as well, but that guy caught him with a good one in the last fight, didn't he?
Povetkin, knocked him straight out.
That was some punch.
Yeah, White's. I feel sorry for him, mate, because he's on the same promoter, Eddie Hearn, as Joshua, and he sort of gets a bum deal, doesn't he? He's not the mega fighter, but yeah, he's got talent for sure. I think like he'd do a number on.
I thought he'd come on a lot, and I thought he'd improved.
I think he'd beat Wilder, mate, in a fight. I really do.
Yeah. No, it's interesting for once. Anyway, that's good.
I love it, mate. I do enjoy my boxing.
But
cricket. Sam loves cricket. He can't get enough of it, mate. Is that a good time to sort of round things up, do we think?
I think we probably should. How have you done with your drink, Jason? Are you drunk much?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not bad once you get going on it. Like, it'll probably stay at that level for a while, you know what I mean, unless someone else comes round. But I've had a few glasses tonight, and it's been all right, to be fair.
You pissed or not?
Probably quite merry. Yeah. So
these secrets that you said you were going to tell us.
Fucking hell.
Do you want to leave us with anything, mate? Is there anything that we've spoken about that actually you think you should build upon, or anything else you want to leave us with?
No, not unless you can think of something.
No, it's. The podcast was unfortunate for the listeners. I mean, my audio kept dropping out. We had to keep re-splicing it. But no, I mean, I think we covered a lot. It was messy, as it always is with these podcasts, particularly when we get a guest on for the first time, just because generally, they've got so much to share, and you naturally go down so many different rabbit holes, don't you? Rather than sticking with one thing. But I think we covered a lot. I guarantee we will be messaged, for weeks on end after this gets released, out of the different subjects that you've raised. And it's always hard for us to realize, and this is a good point to bring up for the listener, actually, when we're talking to our guests and quizzing them on different things, it's a different experience when you listen back to it. So when you guys listen back, you're like, oh, why didn't you ask them about this? Or why didn't you ask them about that? But it's like when you're in the moment, you're just letting the conversation flow, and it just feels a little bit different when you listen back. So, Jason, we'll get so many questions about this. Unfortunately, you probably will as well, mate. I'm sorry about that. You'll probably have people message out, reach out to you and things like that. But no, it's been a hell of a lot of fun, and you've definitely got a very unique perspective and understanding of carp bait, which me and Pete don't have. So it's always fascinating speaking to someone like yourself.
It's quite insular, really. I mean, sort of working with with Gary for a couple of years was interesting.
Yeah.
But I would find myself disagreeing vehement with him quite often, to the point where, you know, he might sit on a forklift truck with a right arse for about 3 hours, and we would sort of brush up. I mean things like, you know, we would say, how far away do you think a carp can detect a bait in the water from? And Gary would say something like sort of 1 to 2 acres, and I'm
Wha-
thinking,
What?
like,
No way.
and he's saying, what are you thinking? I'm thinking like 1 to 2 meters, yeah,
Mm.
and often visually before, like through reception, and I just thinking like I can't understand how he thinks that, you know what I mean? It literally, if it was in the middle of the pit and you had people with bait around the thing, it would be mental. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't just be hearing all the radio. You should have the fucking TVs and computers and iPods and everything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And like, so there was certain things we just couldn't agree on. You know what I mean? And he didn't like disagreeing with people, so you just had to sort of learn to sort of live with it and stuff, you know. But equally, you know, the guy also has a fantastic knowledge on different things, and different aspects of it. So, but I like doing my own thing. You know what I mean? I do. I can sort of square something away in my own head, but sometimes having a bit of input from someone as well helps as well. You know.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing. There's no conclusion, is there? You know, it's pure fucking speculation. A
Yeah,
lot of it.
there's no conclusion. It's speculation, but when you're on the bank, right, and your album's filling up, and you know you're right about something, it feels quite nice. You know,
100%.
you think,
Yeah.
there we go, that would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Did you find, you know, working alongside Gary, who he's been quite a prevalent force in the bait industry, isn't he, for a while?
Well,
Did,
yeah.
did
So Gary learned a lot, obviously, from Hutchie, because
yeah,
like when
yeah.
Hutchie was in the prime of his bait making, and
The switch from Catchum, wasn't it?
yeah. So I mean, he was there throughout that. Well, I was there. Keith Sykes was there, obviously, as well, who's probably forgotten more than most people know anyway.
100%. Yeah.
But again, you know, Keith was one of my bait heroes growing up, but I found myself disagreeing on a few ingredients and things with him. You know what I mean? And who knows who's right and who isn't?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of sort of my heroes growing up, really, as it turns out, were drug addicts and winos and
Yeah.
borderline
Yeah.
schizophrenics.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which probably explains a lot, as what my wife would tell you.
Yeah.
But you know, close to creativity is insanity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Fascinating.
mean, even going back to the 90s, when he was Cotswold Baked, they had some like wicked products that were
They were
well ahead of the time. Yeah.
the milk palatant. Can you get anything similar to that now? I don't think you can.
Well, you obviously you can put any liquid flavour onto powder. So Stringers do one. It's a Spouton animal flavour. It's called Milk Cream. So that's very nice. It's very smooth and very strong, and that will put a nice creamy edge on anything. Most people use those Pan Cosmo things, but they're just a bit harsh, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one was that you just said? Not the harsh one. The
Milk Cream. It's a Stringer flavour. They're in Stevenage,
Mhm.
and they're called. The range is called Spouton Animal Flavours, Animal Palatants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that for the calf industry?
yeah. But you know, they got a couple of really nice ones as well. I use their Fenu. It's called Fenu Blend. It's a mixture of fenugreek, olive resin, and flavors, and fennel as well.
Yeah.
That's a really nice, strong one.
Fenugreek's another fucking awesome attractor, isn't it?
Yeah, well, fennel in its various guises as well. You know, we used
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
yeah, we used to ferment the bulbs like for enzymes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
Yeah, good stuff. Jason, it's been an absolute fucking pleasure talking to you. It's been really good. I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface with your knowledge. So if you ever fancy coming on for a part 2, I know me and Pete would love it. I'm sure that our guests would love it as well. So
Cool.
yeah, open invitation for you. But,
Well, perhaps at some time then I'll send you that e-file, and you can have a look through the bait chapters in there and see if any of that floats your boat at all.
mate,
sure.
Yeah, send us the e-file. I'll give you our email or whatever. And yeah, you mentioned about the Ultra Spice. I'll be buying some of that off you if it's for sale. That's for sure.
I could square away some of it for sure.
Yeah, seriously, mate. I mean, I can edit this out, but yeah, I'll buy some. I will definitely buy some off that. I'm very interested. From what I've read, Ultra Spice was the one for Rod Hutchinson in the winter, and it sounded like he loved that. He loved the crab and the old, chocolate malt, which is a fucking classic.
Absolute classic.
Yeah.
Well, Terry used to like chocolate malt, didn't he? And
Terry
Hearn.
Terry Hearn. Yeah. Okay.
No, I mean, have you ever talked to Terry about bait at all?
Never. No. Never. Never
Right.
spoke. Never
No,
met him.
So probably like most people, he's put his name to sort of some ready-mades, and it just puts his name to things,
Yeah.
and they
Exactly.
pay him to go.
Yeah.
The guy's actually got an absolutely fantastic knowledge of bait.
Do you reckon?
And yeah, for sure. I've talked to him. I've had a few conversations with him, and he really knows his shit. But he does. It's not something he goes into print about or talks about. And I guess it's because of the deals he's got. But he has got a good knowledge, Terry. Yeah,
it's nice to hear. That is nice to hear.
He's quite meticulous as well about the bait he uses and who makes it and how he makes it and stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
No, for sure. It caught me out a little bit as well, but he's on point with all of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get an idea of what you think someone is, but yeah, it's easy to judge quick, isn't it?
That's it. Before we round things up, Jace, how do our listeners sort of find you? Are you on social media or?
Okay, so on Instagram, my private page is Carp in Journeys, and on there, I also have a page for the lake, which is Lac du Blaireau. Facebook, my private page. Also, there's groups and page for Lac du Blaireau, and there's also an A-bait page as well. And the websites are the abait.com and ldbcarp.com. I'm actually a bit of a social media whore, to be honest. But then that comes from working night shifts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sell it, mate. Sell it.
Yeah. Anyone that messaged me, I generally get back to them.
Hey, good. And I think you'll probably find you'll get a few of our listeners sort of in touch. And I know we've had that in the past with guys who sell bait, and actually quite a few of our listeners sort of get in touch and are interested in what they have to say and what they're doing. So hopefully you get a few sort of guys interested from what we've chatted about tonight.
Sweet, bro. Well, enjoyed it anyway. So it's like I say, I'm always happy chewing a bit of fat or anything carpy.
That's it.
Yeah. Obviously, we focus a lot on flavors tonight. I mean, obviously, Jason knows about the full makeup. I mean, flavors are such a small percentage, and actually, for a lot of people, myself included, they actually make up a small percent of the effectiveness of a bait. So perhaps we can get Jason on again. He's certainly someone that you could listen to until the cows come home, and you'd constantly learn something new. So yeah, thank you, Jason. Really appreciate you coming on. Maybe you'll come back for a part 2. Yeah, fuck knows.
Yes, Finn, come on, mate. Anytime.
Yeah, appreciate it.
If you had smell-o-vision, you would be getting some of it through my bachelor flat as well.
What would me be smelling?
Oh, mate, red carpet all day long.
Red carpet.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm fucking pissed. I've had a lot of drink.
What would me be smelling?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Quote of the year, mate.
I'm looking at my gin bottle.
Mostly today, mostly this week. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got like 5 ml left of this gin. I'm shit-faced.
Mate, I'm the same.